Good morning, everybody who is watching today. I'm really excited again today to have another fabulous Raw Success breakout session with somebody who I think is self-proclaimed as a gladiator, and she absolutely walks the walk, boots and all. I'm super excited to introduce you to the fabulous Becky Paroz. Did I say that right? With the French
just
Becky Paroz?
Paroz, yeah.
It's the Aussie, isn't it? Paroz. How are you, Becky?
Oh, I'm good. A bit over this year, but saying that to a bunch of Victorians probably just is like, oh, whatever. I think we all are. So, it's that just sort of climb to the end of the year and the hope for the future that we're all starting to get a bit jaded and all that sort of stuff. So, yeah, morale's a bit up and down in my circle, and certainly with me. It's been a tough year. So anyway, we've got to find those reserves, don't we? That's, part of what makes us strong, keeps us going, and makes us successful is digging deep.
Definitely. And I think we've been talking about it a lot in the sessions, networking, connection, collaboration, checking in on each other, developing a new network, reaching out to people that, are doing okay and have still got those reserves and the positivity, and sort of drawing a little bit where you need to. But it's definitely been one of those years where you'd be normally okay to deal with what's going on, but we've just had so much else forced upon us that it's making it extra crazy, extra special, we say.
Yeah, and just exhausting. Like, I think everyone's exhausted, and it's not anything anyone can do. It's just that drag of time and waiting, and there's a whole lot of loss of control, which for control freaks is really problematic. That's probably my biggest struggle this year is, I've controlled and managed the outcomes my whole life, but this year I'm not in control. I mean, technically we never are, but we have that illusion and we have that creation and we have that ability to change and work with things. But this year it's really like, no, you can't, because you can't go out and network with a different group, and you can't do this and you can't do that. So that lack of control is something I've really struggled with this year.
And interestingly enough, Becky, I would describe you in my circle as one of the strongest women that I know in business. You're a pioneer, an advocate for your industry. So it is really interesting to speak to people in business who normally would be the ones that are super resilient, super, resistant to sort of letting things get to them too much. But I feel like you're right. Everybody is feeling it. I'd love for people that don't know much about you or might not have met you before, for you to just share a little bit about yourself and what you do, because you have had, I'll let you talk, but I feel like you've really been at the forefront of change in your industry and you wear many hats. So I'd love for you to share a little bit more with everyone.
So I've had 30 years in construction, which when I say it like that doesn't really begin to sum up the experience that gives me. So back in the 1991 years is when I started studying engineering. And yeah, for a lot of people I speak to, it's like, man, I wasn't even born then. I was like, yep, I know. That makes me feel really old and gives you that idea of that 30 years span. I work with people now who are like, what do you mean you didn't have the internet when you started studying? How did you learn anything? It's like, well, we had abacus. So I've been, I guess, a forerunner in that construction industry back when it wasn't a thing for women. I was told daily, you don't belong here. It was back before discrimination laws and sexual harassment and bullying and all of that. So it's an old industry, and by which I mean it's been around for thousands of years. And that it has that still kind of antiquity about the process, I suppose. And it's very manly and it's very tough. And so, a lot of the talk was I had to fit in with them. They're not going to fit in with me. And over 30 years, that's changed. And I do believe I've had some impact on that by just refusing to leave. There's still a lot of toxicity around the industry. So throughout those 30 years, I've explored a lot in leadership. I was made a manager at 24, and I've kind of been in leadership since then, which is also quite challenging for some of the fellows I've worked with. I've done coaching and a part of that was learning how to speak and how to communicate better and get more out of what I wanted in the environment where I wasn't being heard. I've written a lot, so I've done a lot of technical writing through the career, which you do with like reports and plans and processes and all that sort of thing, and that sort of turned into a more creative writing element in about 2013, 2014. And so I've contributed to about 12 or so anthologies on leadership and confidence, and that kind of kick-started a side hustle, as it were, that, yeah, now I've published my own book, and I actually coach a few people and support people in producing and self-publishing their book, because there's a change in that industry coming, and the traditional paths aren't working. There's a lot of disruption happening. It's not settled yet. I think there's going to be more over the next couple of years, but it's a really interesting space to be in, particularly because it's so contrasting to construction. Like, construction is very process driven, and even though, you know, you never have a day the same, because there's always issues that come up. That's a part of being a good project manager, is kind of dealing with the fact that everything is dynamic. So to be in a creative industry where it's quite similar is a really interesting contrast, and I suppose gives me some other avenues and other skills to bring into the construction industry, which is why I've done other random things, like been on stage and delivered 5 minutes of comedy after doing a comedy course. I've gotten a aromatherapy qualification. I've done oil painting. I've done a lot of other stuff to kind of try and balance this very masculine world I've been in. So yeah, varied and interesting and challenging would sum up my career, actually. Yeah.
I love that you dabble in things that light you up. And we've had this conversation with a couple of business owners, even recently, who, especially in 2020, have had to look at where they sit in their businesses and what they're doing, and really look a little bit more inward and figure out whether that's stuff that actually is the direction they really want to go. I think taking away sort of the busyness or the routine of getting up and doing a 9 to 5, or, you know, traveling and doing different things, people are sort of now going, well, maybe that's not really what I want to do. And can I upskill myself, or can I try a different angle? I'd love for you to give any advice to anybody that's listening that might be really interested in exploring something else. It could just be for their personal, or it could be another business angle. Where to get started? I think sometimes people feel like that might be a little bit risky, or it might mean that they have to step away from hours in their current work role to sort of explore that. You've done that really, really well. Can you sort of give some advice around how to get started in that?
My best advice in that is sign up and have the regret later. So I did that with the comedy course. Like, I saw it, I was like, this would be great for my public speaking. You know, I've already been told I'm funny, so let's go formalize it. Let's learn a bit more. Thanks, Lace. So I dived in. I just did it, signed up for it, lock it in, make it happen, put it in my calendar. So that's the best advice I can give, is commit to it before you think about it. Then figure out how to. I think it was Richard Branson who said, you know, sign up, jump in to do the thing before and then figure out how to do it. I'm sure he said it better than that. So, you know, and then of course, once I started going through and looking at it, you know, it's like 8 weeks and an evening on a school night. I was like, oh, you know, I do 12 hours a day already, and here I've just committed to go and, you know, spend 2 hours at the beginning of the week doing this. And, you know, then I had all the regrets, of course. And then also too, it's like, hey, you're going to be on stage, invite all your friends to come and see you deliver your comedy at the end of it. That's the kind of the graduation. And because I told everyone I'd signed up to this thing, so this is another technique, tell everyone you're going to do it. Because then they're kind of like, hey, have you done it? Are you doing it? So there's some external pressure you can use. If you're not good at self-motivation, use the external pressure around you and be like, have you done the pottery course yet? You're like, oh, shit, I probably should do that. Yeah, so then I had this like massive overwhelm of like, holy crap, what have I done? So, and then I show up anyway, of course, because, you know, I've committed to it. I've got the external pressure. It's called stacking the bases in a coaching sort of language. You basically make it impossible for you not to do it. And then, yeah, then do it. Most terrifying thing ever, getting up on stage and delivering comedy. Because all of my speaking up until that point, I realized, so this is a really interesting epiphany. And this is what doing external stuff and doing these challenging and different things outside of your world can do, is they can lead to that, you know, adult learning and growth and these moments of like, oh. So I realized that all my public speaking was about teaching. You know, there was a message, there was inspiration, there was learnings, there was, you know, talking about project outcomes, because a lot of my speaking was in the professional realm. So I was always teaching. I really struggled to just come up with something to make people laugh. You know, I even like, I went, okay, I'm going to check out and I'm just going to like make shit jokes, literally about shit. And just like, that's easy. Everyone will laugh, you know, farts are always funny kind of thing. Like I really started panicking so much. I checked out to that level. And then, yeah, thanks, Lise. And then I started telling people like how the acronym SHIT turned up. I'm like, I am still trying to teach people, like, oh my God. So that was a really interesting learning for me, and just letting go of having a message and letting go of having it be meaningful, because at the end of the day, actually making someone laugh is very meaningful. It's just actually really difficult to just do that and just make it that and just have it be that. So really powerful learning. Yeah, I have a recording of it, and I cringe, and I'd like, oh, like we all do, you know, 10 years later, I could have done so much better. But, you know, as everyone who turned up, and all my friends got the front seats, so they're all looking at me. It's like, yay, thanks for the support, guys. Could you not? But at the end of the day, I got up there and I did it. I didn't check out. And every single person was like, well, that's just like, that's brave enough. You know, that was achievement enough. And I think that's one of the things we need to remember, is just showing up is an achievement. Anything more than that is going into the realms of excellence and all of those things that you can reward yourself with. But sometimes just showing up is the achievement. And I think remembering that too, instead of having the, okay, I'm doing a course, I've got to be the best. You know, I've got to ace it. I've got to get 100%. I've got to, you know, make it the prettiest. I've got to, you know, you can put all this pressure, when just showing up and then allowing yourself to enjoy it is, you know, a big part of what is the value.
And I love that you touched on accountability, putting it out there to people that you know, family and friends, whether it's people in your network or your circle, that you're going to do something, because then you do have that, you know, pushback where you are accountable for the things that you say and the things that you're about to do. I love that advice. It's great advice. And you've definitely proven that throughout your career, that when you say you're going to do something, you step up at the mark, even if it terrifies you, and you still do it anyway. And I think that's probably why you've seen so much success in your career. I'd love for you, Becky, is there a moment in your career so far in the industry that you're in, and I know that varies because you're in a few industries, but is there a defining moment in your career that really stands out to you?
There's probably a few. So defining moment, yes. Okay, here's one. So 2005, I was brought on to do a quality management job on $1 billion, $1.4 billion project or something. It was one of those jobs where I'd kind of challenged myself to step up higher, knowing that I could do it, but not actually knowing how. That very much, you know, my thing was like, I'm sure I could do that. Don't know if I can, but I'm gonna do it. So I was in that space of, holy hell, what have I done? But I just completed my second coaching qualification. So I was in a big space of confidence and challenge and all that sort of stuff. Excuse me. On my very first day, one of the senior managers had a good go at me. Not unusual in this industry, but he was particularly clear on his message, shall we say. And he told me, like, you people, meaning quality people, are just worthless. You know, you talk about processes and you talk about continuous improvement, and, you know, to be honest, there's only, you know, there's a point you get to in continuous improvement where you can't actually continue anymore, and you should be doing yourself out of a job, and you just, you know, I've never seen it happen, and you're worthless, and blah, 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 blah. I was like, cool, okay, thanks for the feedback. Yep, really feeling the love, feeling welcome. But instead of reacting, excuse me, and instead of kind of making it personal and all the things that you could very easily do with a input like that, I just kind of turned around and turned it on his head and went, well, I've actually done that in 2 jobs, whereby I've actually made it so efficient they don't need me anymore. So you know what? Maybe I'm the person to prove to you the value in this role. I can't wait to work with you. Thanks so much. And just kind of left him with the whole, you know, like I said, he was super senior. He was like second in line, which I didn't know at the time. So he got full attitude. He was shocked that I actually kind of put it back on him and went, well, I actually have done that. So there. But I did it politely and I did it respectfully enough that he was kind of like, well, okay. That guy on my very last day on that project came up and said, I remember what I said to you. And you know what? You have proven the value of this role, and you have shown me what it can achieve. And you have actually changed my mind about that. So thanks very much. Well done, and all the best for your future. You know, that's the kind of thing I live for in the construction industry, particularly when there's so much feedback, and in other areas that aren't necessarily useful feedback. So yeah, so that's kind of, I suppose, a really defining moment in just consolidating that sometimes not reacting, and sometimes again taking that challenge on and going, well, maybe I am the person to prove this to you, can actually be the most beneficial thing to do. And you got to see the results. A year and a half before I saw those results, but there they were.
A great point you just touched on, Becky, is making sure that in your business you don't take everything personally, because that actually can get you really tripped up, I think, in your mindset and your ability to kind of move forward. It is really hard when you're running a business because you are running it and it is everything. You put so much time and so much brain juice and effort into your business. But do you have any tips around how to kind of work on your skills in that development, or that self limiting belief of just getting past things? If someone pushes back, or you might have a customer that gives you bad feedback, or a client that says you were terrible in your session, or whatever it might be, are there any sort of tips or tricks around working on those things, I guess, to toughen you up a little bit in business that you could advise?
Sure. The first thing is, not all feedback is good. Not all feedback is relevant to you. So I have this phrase that I use myself a lot, and I teach a lot of my younglings that I mentor: consider the source. And I wish I'd known this so much earlier in my career. Excuse me. So consider the source means consider where that feedback is coming from and what's driving the person giving you that feedback to have that exchange. So, for example, this guy who had a crack at me, for want of a better word, he wasn't having a go at me. He was having a go at his view of the role that I was performing. So when you consider the source and what his feedback is from, that's easy to then go, well, that's not personal. That's not to me as a person. That's to his experience that he's had up until this point. That then gives me the ability to change it, to change what he said to me, to change his point of view, and see that as a challenge for that improvement. So consider the source. I've had other feedback where it's like, it's not the work you do, it's the person you are. And so, well, what kind of person am I that you're finding this negative? And it came down to, you're smarter than me. You always have an answer for everything. And basically, I made them feel inadequate. Now, that kind of feedback is not necessary for me to take on board. And as I said, I wish I knew this a lot earlier, because I got a lot of that when I was younger. And it took a very intelligent man mentoring me in RIS to point out that how terrifying I was, I suppose, to a lot of the men in the industry, because the men in the industry have a hierarchy, and the smartest are at the top, and the people who are good with their pens and all that sort of stuff are at the bottom, and it's very accepted in that space. So for a dynamic, bright, loudmouth, attitude-filled young woman to come in and totally disrupt this is very confronting. And it wasn't until he kind of explained that to me that I was like, oh, that's where most of that feedback came from, is that they actually were challenged. I call it, we're all ladies here, I call it small dick syndrome. Essentially, they weren't confident enough in who they were and what they knew, that everything I did challenged that for them. And as a man in a man's world, that just wasn't acceptable. So again, coming back to consider the source. When people in that space are giving you feedback, it has no relevance to who you are and what you're doing. So it's very easy. Well, it's not very easy. It's easier to eventually let that go quicker. And it's practice. I can still remember some of the insults from when I was very young in the industry, but they no longer affect me, because I can see the source and I can see why they were saying that with all the knowledge I have. So practicing considering the source and considering where that information is coming from and why they feel the need to tell you that information goes a long way to filtering it through whether you need to take something from that or not. Sometimes you do, but you can take the sting out of it. Like I've had girlfriends, just take one look at me and like, do you own a mirror? Now I could take that as, oh my God, I have no dress sense. And maybe that's true. Or I could take that as, yeah, well, I kind of only just crawled out of bed half an hour ago. So fair enough. I don't look great today. You can take it to either extreme, but consider the source. She was a friend. She was having a joke. She was giving me shit from someone who didn't mean it that way. Again, consider the source. Is she just being nasty? Is she feeling inadequate today? Am I actually looking fabulous? And, well, let's drag someone down who's feeling confident about themselves. There's all that sort of stuff that comes into play with feedback. Learning to recognize it and practice filtering it is the biggest value you can give yourself.
It's great advice. I love that. Consider the source. Consider what else might be going on behind that comment that actually may have nothing to do with you. It's brilliant. And Lisa Westgate actually just said, we are always our own toughest critics. And that's very true. So I guess if you can take it from yourself, you can take it from anyone, because I'm sure you've probably heard worse in your own brain chatter towards yourself than anything anyone else could say. So I love that. Just keep practicing, consider that source, and not taking it just at face value and as gospel. Really consider who's delivering that message and why.
Even on your own feedback to yourself, as Lisa said, and very wisely so, we are our own worst critic. God, I haven't had a drink this morning. So consider the source. Like, what mood am I in? What am I feeling right now? What else is coming up for me? Self-filter as well, because some of the stuff you say to yourself, you would never say to your best friend. So why say it to you? Oh, Julia, loving it.
Yeah, Julia just said, if you wouldn't say it to your daughter, don't say it to yourself. And
exactly,
that's a great...
I see so many women so hard, and again, learned experience, just, slandering themselves. And it's like, dude, you wouldn't like, if your best friend was sitting in a room saying this shit about herself, you'd be like, bitch, please, enough. Here's all the good stuff. Yeah. So considering the source for your own self language is a really, really, let's start there, before you start with other people, because we are so tough on ourselves. Strong, powerful, intelligent, driven women are their harshest critics. So, how about you use some of that view to actually remind yourself where you're excelling. If we're so good at saying, here's where we're failing, then use that skill to say, here's where we're succeeding, because we have that ability. So, let's be nicer to ourselves, and then hopefully we'll all start being nicer to each other.
Lisa just said, you've got to be your own biggest fan. So, and I think it's very true. I'd love to know, Becky, if I was to put you in a time machine now, which I think you would love, but I was going to take you back to the beginning of your career, what advice would you give yourself?
Oh, I thought you were going to say, what would I do? So that's what advice would I give to myself? I would give myself this advice. Consider the source, filter the feedback. Do not take on everything that everyone is telling you for the next 10 years. And that comes into the confidence, believe in yourself, believe that you do have what it takes, you are going to make it, and stop listening to all of the negative shit. Yeah.
It's great. I love that you work so hard on your own personal development and your growth, and you're very open and honest about that. I think that's something that we really hold back on as business owners, and we don't often want to talk about. We're often really kind of, I guess, nervous or scared to keep developing and keep growing. So I love that about you. I would love to know what you think your industry is going to look like in the next sort of 5 to 10 years.
I think it's going to have a massive shakeup. It's been so archaic for so long. It's coming. I'm seeing the ripples. So when I started 30 years ago, even though there was all this negative stuff about females, it was very much a family. You were there for the project, you worked hard for the project, you party hard after the hours, you got the project done, and kind of see you on the next one kind of thing. And, I've got people that I haven't met up with in 20 years, and if I saw again on a project, we'd be like instant family again. That doesn't happen anymore. And there's lots of societal reasons, and I'm sure a lot of industries are like this. Now everyone's very self-involved. It's about my job title and my wage and me through the hierarchy, and we've lost this bigger picture of team and best for project and best for client and all that sort of stuff. I think that is going to have to come back around again. I think there's a lot of corruption that's being filtered out, and unfortunately legislation is probably... It's a Band-Aid measure rather than a preventative measure. But I think there's a lot of changes with young people coming through. You guys are having your own joke over there. Like, I don't know. I don't need to read the messages. It's the bum, isn't it? So I think it's going to change. I think there's going to be a lot of disruption. I think a lot of the major players are going to start
I like the naughty kids, Becky. I'm so
I know,
sorry. They're so
very
pepped up this
distracting.
morning. But Michelle just said, to touch on what you were just saying, Michelle just said, I'm finding that in 2020, that people that are providing the negative comments or feedbacks, they have their own issues. And when she turns it around and turns the negative into words of kindness, they totally freak out. It's like it deflates them.
Yes. I had a girlfriend who had that experience recently. She's been through 6 years of breast cancer. She's had heart problems and surgery. Like she's the toughest chick on this planet. And she's worked full time in the industry and safety, still doing 14 hours a day, and had a kid during all this as well. Like just amazing chick. She's discovered, this type of keto lifestyle works for her, works for her heart and all that sort of stuff. And she was checking in a group on numbers and I don't know all the detail, but there's some statistics or something you've got to follow when you're doing that. And she got slaughtered because they took one look at her beautiful face, her blonde short hair, the fact she looks younger than she is, and they just piled on her. And for the first time, she kind of just went, oh, thanks for the feedback. Oh, thanks for the feedback. Oh, that's really interesting. Thanks for the feedback. And it did. Everything escalated way out of control. And she was just like, wow, I didn't even bite. She's pretty firecracker like me. That's why we're good friends. So it really, and that's where consider the source, take the sting out of it. Don't make it personal. Eleanor Roosevelt, you don't have to be offended. It's your choice to be offended. People can't offend you unless you let them. So it's, I can't remember where I was going with that, but it is a really interesting space right now where there's a lot of change in society, and I think that's reflecting in construction, which has always been a bit behind the times, shall we say. But I also see a lot of automation. I see a lot of, change in the way we do work and who actually gets the accolades. Because a lot of people, again, in the hierarchy, it's like, oh, I'm a project manager. Oh, I'm a project director. Oh, I'm a senior engineer. And they tend to attract, they tend to think that, oh, I made this job. Every project manager everywhere, oh, yes, I built the Lane Cove Tunnel. No, you didn't. You managed the build of the Lane Cove Tunnel. There were 3,500 blokes actually out in the dirt, sweating, putting their lives in danger. They actually built it, which is why I get a lot of good feedback and a lot of great stuff from my team, not so much from my management, because that's not an attitude they consider to be, what's the word that gives them accolades. So, I see that changing a lot. I'm hoping the power of the people realizing their value in sort of bigger circles and bigger ways is going to start impacting positively. We've seen the change to bullying, and like bullying is still in the industry, don't get me wrong. But it's called out now. There are people who won't tolerate that anymore. Whereas before, even 10 years ago, people would be like, you want to keep your job, shut your mouth. It's still there, but it's changing, which I have a great deal of hope for in the next 5 to 10 years, that hopefully the industry will get cleaned up a bit.
I hope it does, because you're right. It's those little changes, isn't it, in industry where things start to really kind of, they're acknowledged and they are called out. I think that's an important thing, but it has taken a long time in many industries for that to even be where it is today. So we've spoken about this previously, Becky. And you touched on a little bit with what you were just talking about then, when you come up against conflict, or you might attract the wrong people to your circle and it ends up getting, a bit crazy. They're either energy bandits or they're in it for self-gain, and it doesn't kind of work out. Do you have any advice around how to, I guess, clear out those sort of negative people and not take it so, I guess, don't take it on so much that it kind of trips you over and has you flat on your face? We've talked about how it took you a long time to sort of be able to really call someone on face value and go, you're not my cup of tea, and I'm okay with that. But not many people can do that when they walk into a room. Most people are nervy. They'll talk to everybody, even if it's the wrong person. Do you have any advice around how to just work on those skills and really not be ashamed to think that's not my person? I don't need to have you in my, I don't need to add you on Facebook, and I don't need to accept your friend request. I don't need to have everybody be my friend. I think you're such a great advocate for that. I'd love some advice around that.
Okay, so the first piece of advice is really practical. So I work in quality. Quality is all about percentages passing. We take a 10% sample and we test it for conformance, and then we make assumptions that the rest of the sample reflects the percent correct and all that sort of stuff. So I kind of apply that to, the population. If I go 10% of people aren't going to like me, then that already allows me that when they put their hand up and show they don't like me, to go, oh, you're in the 10%, great, bye. You already know they're not percent passing, they're not conforming, they're not in the Beck circle. So that's just a really practical, numeric, for those of us who are a little bit that way designed, to kind of go, well, if I already assume 10% of people aren't going to like me, then you're in the 10% bucket, great, move on. So that's a really quick filter. To then take out some of the personal, because sometimes people really, really, really want you to know that they don't like you. And again, that's more about them. Consider the source, filter the feedback. But it's about knowing your own self. It's about being confident and constantly reminding yourself, I've achieved this, 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 and this. I've overcome childhood violence. I've overcome a debilitating disease that was supposed to put me in a wheelchair at 24, and I'm still walking at 46. I've overcome an industry that told me, and continues to tell me in various ways for 30 years I don't belong. So when I see someone being mean and kind of going, oh, you're too loud, you're too this, you're too that, oh, you're so, whatever, I'm like, yep, have you done all those things? Then you don't get to talk because you haven't walked a mile in my shoes. So your feedback isn't relevant. Consider the source. That takes a lot more practice to be able to do that instantly and be like, yep, you're not my people, bye. The other thing too, I think, is my industry. I've had to learn to filter very quickly the men who want to help and then the men who want to help me, baby. So again, early days, lots of learning, be nice to everyone, smile to everyone, conform, be a part of their world. Yeah, that led to some really dangerous situations. So I had to learn very quickly to be like, yeah, no. Yep, you're not, nope. You're a decent guy. I can sit down and have a beer and talk to you and not feel like at the end of the night there's some form of obligation to consolidate the deal. And that doesn't necessarily mean they're married with kids either. That can be a trap for the unwary. It's practice. It's practice, but what it comes down to is belief in yourself. I'm a decent person. I have the best motivations that I can possibly have. I aim for perfection, even if I don't meet it. I'm showing up every day doing the best job I can do. So that's how I judge myself. Nobody else gets to judge because they're not looking from this side out. If they want to look outside in and make all sorts of assumptions, that's their problem. And again, it's about that self-filtering. If you do that around me, you've just put your hand up and said, you're not my people. I'm okay with that. I've got people. I don't need other people. And I think that's a very strong message for a lot of women because we want to be liked. We're taught from the moment we're born, oh, you have to be nice. You have to smile. You have to get along with people. You're the peacemaker, blah, blah, fucking bullshit, blah. And yes, I have used strong language there because I really hate that message we do to our young girls. We don't do it to our young boys. And again, I see that movement changing and like, don't force little Minnie to go and hug dirty old Uncle Harry because we know he's dirty old Uncle Harry. Fuck off, dirty old Uncle Harry. It's changing, and I see that's really powerful. And I think the more we empower our young women to know themselves and be confident and believe in what they want, I think the quicker some of the stuff will resolve itself throughout society, because that's kind of what's missing. There's this imbalance. Men grow up confident, women have to learn it, and that's really shitty and it's really unfair, but it is what it is. So the sooner we can empower all the other women out there to feel that way as quick as possible, I think the quicker we're all going to be able to have that ability to then filter who's our people and who isn't.
Amen, sister. I saw everyone in the chat then when you were telling dirty old Harry to nick off. Everybody was erupting in support of that comment. I think it's brilliant advice.
Haven't we? Whether it's been workplace or family or whatever, we've all had the sleaze.
Yeah.
And most of us are trained, don't make waves. Some of us feel, it's dangerous if I do. At the end of the day, I've worked with hundreds of thousands of men. And there are very few times that I've felt unsafe, even when I've gone, no, that's a boundary, you can stop now. So speaking of raising our next generation, right? That's a haircut and a half, isn't it, Jude? So yeah, it's not impossible. Very rarely have I felt unsafe, and I've worked with men for 30 years. And that's a big part of my level of confidence and knowing where my boundaries are. And also, you know, there is a certain level of social responsibility. Don't put myself in stupid situations. And I've learned not to do that because I have done that. Fortunately, I've either had a bloke who's looked out for me knowing this isn't great, or I've, you know, had a strong sense of self-preservation and gotten the hell out of there before it's too late. But a lot of women, again, won't do that because, oh, nice, or because obligation, or because. Fuck because, just do it.
Yeah.
Oh, I swore in front of the child.
Well, earmuffs. We'll have to do earmuffs when the language is going to go. I'd love to know, Becky, not only have you been a stellar standout in the construction industry for, is it over 30 years now?
It's actually 30 years this year. Yeah.
30 years this year. That's, congratulations. That's a stellar, you know, I mean, to be a woman in that industry first and foremost, but to put in 30 years of just putting up with what you've put up with and still getting up and putting those boots on and getting out there every day, like you're a total rock star. I'd also like to mention that you're also an author, a self-published author who's done your own distribution and your marketing. And I would love for you to tell people that are listening, you know, if people are thinking or considering about perhaps going down that, you know, road with writing, or even if it's blogs, you know, a lot of people start with blogging and then, you know, kind of think, oh, okay, maybe I could write a book. What's the best way to sort of get started in that process, do you think, as someone who's been there and done it successfully?
Okay, the best way is to just write. Being an engineer and, you know, process driven, and always kind of like, I like to get it right first. So I do all the research so that when I do it, I'm, you know, 99% there. Yeah, don't do that because you get lost. Okay, so like the construction world, the publishing world is changing massively because you're going from the traditional model, which is based and has its roots based in elitism, classism, and a lot of that stuff. You know, books weren't for the masses, they were for the rich people, and they were for churches and all that sort of stuff. So again, you've got, I don't know, I must just go, oh, hey, what's a hard industry? I'll have that one. So, and it doesn't look like that from the outside because, you know, it's creative and yeah, oh, it's bullshit. 50 Shades of Grey is all I need to say on. It's not what you know and how well you write, it's who you know and how well you market. So just write. Don't stress over getting it right. Don't stress over grammar so much. Just write. Once you've written enough to kind of get the bug and kind of realize you do want to do this, then start to formulate some strategies and think about what you want to do. A Twilight. Yes. And yeah, so then once you've got the bug, then just decide what you want to do with it, whether it's blogs. And blogs are really short, simple, sweet. They can kind of be really engaging with your audience, whether you do it daily or weekly. You know, the mum blogger is something that is kind of pooed on, but that's how blogging started. There's all these mums wanting to connect and share stories and go like, oh my God, I'm not alone. And that's one of the great things the internet did, is kind of give all these mums this collective sigh of relief that, oh, everyone else goes through this. Phew. Excuse me. So that's a really great way of connecting with audience and building a brand and kind of, you know, finding your space. It's a great way of practicing writing. You want to level up and do a bit more, and you want to create books and everything. Once again, start writing it. You know, if you're a planner, then plan it out and kind of go, okay, this is, you know, my start point, this is my finish point. Here's the points I want to make in between. If you're doing a non-fiction, and then start filling in the detail. If you're doing a fiction, there's lots of techniques out there. And again, you can do a bit of research, but overwhelmingly just write. I sort of say get 80% of what you want to write down in a book, then start figuring out how you're going to make it work and what order and what you're trying to say and all that sort of stuff, because you'll get lost. You'll just be Alice down the rabbit hole of this overwhelm of information because there's a lot of choice out there. So traditional is one. Then there's self-publishing, which is where you control everything and you sort of pay subcontractors to do your cover and do your editing and that sort of thing, which if you want a quality production, you'll do. Then there's this big conglomerate space in the middle of hybrid, supported, indie, self-pub, there's another word they use kind of thing, where there's a lot of scams. There's a lot of people who take your money and say they're going to help you with your book and they're going to publish you and what they're going to do is they're going to take their money. Take your money and not deliver on their promises. So but again, it's disrupting the industry. It's disrupting. The traditional is fighting back in that, oh, if you're an indie publisher, we won't even touch you. But then there's stories of, can't remember the guy, he wrote a zombie series. Is awesome because I'm into zombies. 7-book, and it sold something like 2-3 million copies. And he self-published, and he only used social media to market himself. Yeah, great success story. So now the traditional publishers are like, we could, what about, come and talk to us? And it's like, well, I don't need to. Why? Yeah, exactly. Excuse me. I think he is considering it because they're tangling movie deals and all that sort of stuff, which, put more zeros on the end of the check, mate, is what I would be saying to that. So it's a really interesting space to be in, I suppose, not only in contrast to construction, but also because it's another industry that's being really disruptive and disrupted. So I kind of go, there's a book in everyone. There's not necessarily a good writer in everyone. So if you've got a story you want to tell and you're not a good writer, go and find a ghostwriter, because there's people out there who make a living doing that. If you're not a good writer, record it. Get a what do you call it? It's an old thing now. Oh, yes, thank you. Showing my age there. Or on your tablets or whatever. There's plenty of programs. And then, pay someone to turn it into a text, and then you can start to work from there. So you're kind of skipping the really boring, shitty part if that doesn't work for you. So there's all this amazing stuff out there. But one thing I do really want to stress is, if you want people to buy your book, treat it like a business. Treat it like a product that you want to be proud of. Treat it like something that adds to your business acumen, a business card, a part of your marketing strategy. Treat it as a proper business outcome once you've got the writing out, because you want the writing to be fun and enjoyable and really kind of be in that space, because writing is a very visceral, emotive, solo exercise. It's once you've finished that, you then have to go out and turn into business and market and be the exact opposite. So enjoy the writing. Once you get to a point where you want to start turning it into a product, treat it like a business and kind of, get some professional input, pay to make it look good. Don't just like, oh, I can do something on Canvas, she'll be right. No offense against Lisa, whose first attempt may have involved that. But she did the right thing. She went and got some great advice. Thanks. And, she's got herself a great little product now, and we've been talking for a while now. I'm trying to motivate her. Come on, next book. So it is, once you have the bug, you kind of can't stop. Awesome. So it's really, I find it really freeing. Writing is a really freeing activity for me. For someone who's written processes and always had the structure, to then all of a sudden be able to write about leadership in whatever framework or format I like, was like, wow, so writing can be fun. Okay. And yeah, I've kind of had the bug ever since. So I've got something like 4 books in various stages of progress. This year's been, well, I've had time. It's actually been really hard to sit down and focus on delivering that for lots of reasons. So I'm trying not to beat myself up for, all of that. But at the end of the day, it's a fun activity. So if it's not fun, then ask yourself why you're doing it.
So just get started.
Just get started. Just write. Just
great
pen
advice.
to paper, keyboard to tablet. There's lots of programs out there where there's you can do handwriting on a tablet and it'll convert it to text. So there's lots of ways to capture what it is you want to say. Don't just feel like it's the old, have a notebook and scribble down a pen. Works for some people.
And I love that you said, just get started, just start writing. And if it doesn't feel like it's your jam, then why are you doing it? Because not everyone has to write a book, right? So yeah, I really like that advice. So I'd love to open it up. We've had some serious, colourful conversation happening in our chat while this has been going on, that they're trying to distract you, I think, Becky. But I'd love to open it up and throw it open. If anyone has a question or wanted to jump on and say hi, I'm going to start with you, Lisa, because I feel like you've been in the chat the most, running hot. So and we'd love to invite you on if you'd like to say hi and ask a question.
Ask a question. Usually just full of opinions that are not valid. I love the advice around writing a book of just write it, just start it. And I think that it's important to understand the purpose and the value of editing and formatting and all the stuff that comes after the writing. I think people sort of think about writing a book as, yeah, you just sort of dump it out and then you put it on Amazon and then, you know, you're a bestseller.
A lot of people just do that. So yeah, don't be that guy.
Yeah, don't be that guy. Be like Becky. And appreciate that there is more of a process to writing a book, and getting somebody like Becky's help, which I have previously and currently and in the future. In terms of, you know, writing a book is so much more than just, I've got a really great idea. There's so much that comes after that. And, you know, even after you've written the book and it's edited and formatted and it's ready, then it's like, great, where do I put it? How do, you know, I want people to read it because I think it's of value, but there's a whole world after that. And I think it's kind of one of those industries that people just assume that they have the body of knowledge to be able to do that. Rather, like we've all learned the hard way not to cut your own hair, right? Like, oh no, that was horrible, I should go to a hairdresser. You know, like there's certain things in life you realize I should have got a professional to do this. And I think writing a book and publishing it and getting it out into the world in a way that makes positive ripples and actually gets to people, which is kind of the point, right? Get a professional to support you in that. So, you know, by all means, get writing and do it, but then get the help. Don't be like, yeah, I reckon a bit off here, and you know, like it never ends well, I think. And if you're particularly passionate about your content, make sure you do that. What do you reckon, Becky? There's a whole lot of people just sort of winging it and put it out there. And
there is, and that's why self-publishing has this ick name, and it's poo-pooed, and it's thought of as, you know, oh, just another romance writer or whatever, because that's how it started. However, there are women making a killing. They put 6 to 10 books out a year. They're making a couple $1 million because romance is the biggest reader collective on the planet. If you think about the old Mills and Boons, like, you know, you had to buy it, then you had to sneak it, and then you had to read it. And, you know, there were women who were buying one of those every time they came out. Now they can buy one every day, and they're not judged for it because no one sees it. So, you know, I've often thought about, could I? But I don't think I could write a romance. I think I'd be too cheesy, and I'd be too sarcastic, and yeah. But what that tells me is that there's a market out there. You have to find it, and you have to tap into it. But those women doing that have a team of people supporting them. And it's exactly like Lisa said. Yes, you can do that. However, if you want to have some pride in your product, if you want people to pick up your product, then you need to treat it as a professional product, which means getting experts to have a look at it. Like Danny, you know, with your Miblets, which are amazing. You didn't just like come up with that idea, you know, make some Play-Doh and be like, hey, sweet. You know, you had a team of people check it against regulations. You would have done some exploration onto colors and what reacts best there, all sorts of things like that. And so why wouldn't you do that with a book? Just not, and that's different to writing for fun. Like, I have a friend, she doesn't publish a thing, she never will, but she's been writing for years. I've never read any of her stuff. She is a writer as far as I'm concerned, but she has no interest in publishing. So don't forget that sometimes writing is just for you, and it's not for an audience. You know, you can just do writing for the sake of writing. I think that's another thing 2020 has kind of been teaching people, is that it's okay to have a hobby. We don't have to monetize it. We don't have to hustle it. We don't have to pivot it. We don't have to, you know, do whatever. We don't have to justify it in the meaning of our life other than, I like doing this. So just, that's where the difference between writing for fun, and if this is something you're doing for pleasure, don't turn it into something you hate. But if it's something you like to monetize, then treat it professionally. And that means get the support, get an editor, get qualified people, get someone who can go through the process. But trust me, the process is big and overwhelming. And honestly, after I never thought this, I was told this, I was like, well, whatever. Writing the book is actually the easy part. Marketing it, getting it to looking like a product that people want to buy, that is actually a lot more complicated than you would think. Now, some people just do it themselves, and that's okay. You will find them, you know, something like 1,000 books an hour, a minute uploaded to Amazon. Not everyone's paying professionals to do that. If you like that sort of thing, great, it's there, find it. If you, however, want to attach your name and want to have some growth around it, then treat it like you would anything else. So
it's great advice that you just said, Becky. Not everything you do has to be monetary based. Not everything you set out to do in your life has to bring you in money or make you money. You can do things that light you up, that are for pleasure, that are for fun, curiosity. I love that you've said that, because I do feel like in the world that we live in, we have so much pressure on us to put our time into always hustling and making money, and it's got to be money, 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 money. And I've just found, in the last few years, I've done things that I just really enjoy because I enjoy them for no other reason, just to benefit myself, because I find that self-care and that time that I take for myself helps do things in business and makes me a better partner, makes me a better parent, makes me a better friend. So I love that you touched on that. And I am totally with Lisa. While you were talking about sarcastic romance, she wrote, I would love to buy a romance novel that's all sarcastic, and I would too. So I'm going to put it out there as a challenge that I think you should write that book, because everyone's nodding. Yes, I think that could be a challenge, and I reckon you would nail it.
So every second thing is, like male to female connections, and where's that slurry pipe, and
even a short story. I'd take a short story, Beck. Just write that. Yeah.
I'm with Lisa.
On my list. On my list.
The challenge. We've set the challenge, Lisa. So it's out there. We're going to come back. # watch this space. # sarcastic romance. I think it would be great. So
okay. All right. So I'll see what I can do.
Did anyone else have a question for Becky while I have her here?
While you're all, yep, Julie.
I think Julie is trying to unmute.
I'm trying. So I've written a children's book that still needs some fine tuning, and it's only taken me 10 years to write because I've been writing it in my spare time.
Mm-hmm.
And I wanted to do the self-publishing route because I have no intention of becoming an author. It's just a one-hit wonder, wanted to get it out there in the world. If a couple of people buy it for their kids, awesome. But flip side is I also, if suddenly it does go really well and I can sell 1 million copies, I also want to be prepared for that too.
Mm-hmm.
Just wondering, I've been told self-publishing with Ingram Spark was the best way to go for kids' books, and they've got lots of things there that could be possible. Again, not hoping to be a 1 million book selling author, and I don't have any more good ideas inside of me, but
you'd be surprised.
But to just have something that I can be really proud of, and it's hardcover and beautiful, and it's done, and it's because I love doing things as good as possible. There's no sort of halfway with me. I love to have it perfect.
You're in the right crowd. Yeah.
Love
all in or don't bother. Yeah.
That's kind of
so people would have told you Ingram Spark because their print quality is the best. Okay. So there's this thing called print on demand, POD. You'll see in acronyms, and there's a lot of acronyms in the industry, so do take time to check on them. So Ingram Spark has the best print quality. So Amazon everyone knows Amazon. I have a personal hatred of Amazon because I think it's like all conglomerates. It's going to overtake everything. However, you need to be on Amazon to be credible as well. So I have it on Amazon. I plug the other platforms I have, just as an aside. So Ingram is probably the next competitor to Amazon. My understanding is a bit more complex to get your information up there because they like to, as everyone, we're different. However, all my research shows that Ingram Spark has the best print quality. So with kids' books, people like to have them printed. That's probably why your recommendation. So print on demand basically means you upload your electronic copy once it's completed, and then someone in the UK can buy your book. It'll be printed in the UK and posted locally. So it takes out your distribution. It takes out the cost of you having to send it from here to there. To make that example, I bought 4 books for $10 US from an author I know because I wanted them in paperback. It cost me the same amount to get it posted to here, and he didn't send it like super special post. So you want to avoid that, and that's where print on demand, the rise of that has come through. The problem with that is in Australia, there's only one location for print on demand, and that's in Melbourne. And I've heard various question marks over their quality.
Okay.
So in Australia, I recommend you do your own distribution. So you have your electronic copies that people can purchase to the rest of the world, and then have a small amount printed in Australia that if people want to buy, they come direct to you. That also maximizes your profit. So if you put your book on Amazon, they have 2 payment models. They take 30% or they take 70%. There's various elements around why you would pick each one of those. Ingram Spark, I believe, is somewhere in the 20 to 30%. Smashwords takes 15%. And then there's, you know, Kobo, Lulu, Apple Books, Google Play. There's a ton of platforms. Yep. And this is why I say write the book first before you go looking at all this stuff, because this is where, like, already you're like, oh my God. Draft to Digital is a new one that I'm just about to explore myself. So that's why I say have the book written. Okay. If you're there, great. Maybe consider editing. So the question I have for you is, and here's where you get into some of that, the industry has expectations around it. So a children's picture book is generally around 1,000 words, between 500 to 1,000 words, with pictures on every page.
Yeah.
If you've written more words than that, you're then getting into what's called a chat book, which is between 3,000 and 5,000 words. And that's where children have, you know, there's pictures at the start. You know, it's a bigger layout, but that's where they start moving from picture book to just the written word. Then there's the middle grade books, which is like your, you know, like a real book, but shorter. That I think is around 8,000 words. And so when you're building this product, and this is why I say write it first, so then you can kind of figure out, well, what category does that fit in? If it doesn't fit into any category, how am I going to change that? Am I going to change that? Am I going to challenge the industry by providing something different? Where does this fit? Because then the market has expectations. Well, a picture book, you don't pay more than $20 for. If you want me to pay $50 for a kid's book, what am I going to do? They're like, well, I can go and get 3 others, or I can go and get 25 for $1 at Kmart for that price. Yeah. So then you've got to price it. So the idea is you have to balance how much money you input to the book to create this production versus how much you're going to sell it for and how many you're going to sell. And that sounds like you're in that kind of space. It's like, how are you going to have pictures with it? How much are you going to spend on those pictures? How are you going to create the cover? How much is that worth to you to create this product, given you're not sure whether you're going to sell like 10 to family or, you know, 1 million because suddenly someone picks it up and goes, hey, my kid loved this book and I'm a celebrity, which does happen and can happen. And that's about balancing what you want. You know, like you said, you want to do the best version you can, absolutely, but the best version you can might cost you $10,000. That is not a good investment. Yeah. So manage your best that I can and go, okay, 80% is good enough. I can, you know, instead of the $2,000 a picture illustrator, I'm going to go with the $20 a picture illustrator. And to be honest, there's not much difference in some of them. You know, some of them you're paying for the name. Some of them you're paying for a quick turnaround. You know, you can get a good illustrator on Fiverr for $10, $20, $30 a picture if you're happy with that. So that's, like I said, that's where now that you've written it, now you've got all of that exploration to go through, and that's where you can either get lost or jaded or kind of give up because it's too much. It's overwhelming.
I actually found an amazing illustrator on Fiverr for approximately the $100 an image.
And that's about right in the industry. That's a good value. Yeah.
Yeah, and she's phenomenal. She's Italian and her name's Elettra, and she just creates the most great pictures.
We love her already with the name.
Yeah. Elettra, I know, right? So she's phenomenal. I'm really, really happy with what she's done. We've done everything inside and we're just working on the cover at the moment.
Great. Now my question to you is, you figured out what size book you're printing and how she matched the illustration to the size. Yeah. All right.
Just bonus Ingram Spark.
Bonus points, because a lot of people don't do that first. They do that after, and it costs a lot to change, all that sort of thing. Sounds like you're well on your way.
Yay, I hope so.
Yeah.
We've done it so that there's a white border around each image, so that even if things were a bit skew with one way or the other, it would take into the border rather than the image itself.
Yep. So, 3mm bleed is the expectation. So yeah, that should either take it to the border or you'll still have a bit of a white line around there.
And Lisa just wrote, sorry, Becky, Lisa just wrote, this is why Becky is a killer book coach, because it's a skill set that you've developed over many, many years, because all of your advice is so specific, so in tuned with the right way to do things, not the fast way to do things. And I think in books and in being a published author or a best-selling author, we are seeing, you know, at an extreme rate, more and more people guaranteeing a bestseller, guaranteeing number one, guaranteeing la la la. But I love that you are, from the ground up, you're doing it for the right reason. You understand your own you know, your own narrative and your client's narrative, and where the possibilities lie in growing that as a really, you know, solid set author. If you're going to put something out on paper, or if you're going to put something out in Word, that you understand the destination and how to get there. I love that. I think it's great.
And just on that, what you brought up, it's another interesting industry trick, is to get that bestseller, you only have to sell 2,000 copies in your first month of publish. Yeah, it's a game. It's a scam. It can be scammed. Some of those best-selling authors are scams. There's plenty of stories you can Google. You know, the author who ordered 2,000 books through a bookstore and he's now got them sitting in his garage, but he got #1 bestseller. Hasn't sold a book. So, you know, there's that. And some people, that's how far they'll go for it. But
do you think, Becky, sorry to cut you off, I'd love to know, do you think that's going to ever change? Do you think there needs to be more regulation around that? Because it is quite misleading. I feel like, you know, you almost feel duped as somebody who might deal with someone that comes to you and says, I'd love to be a speaker at your event because I'm a best-selling author. Is there any way to actually really check to find out whether they are?
Read their book.
Yeah, okay.
They might be a best-selling author. I'm a best-selling author. I was part of an anthology. We sold 2,000 in the first 24 hours. I'm a best-selling author in 4 countries. I think Lisa Westgate is also in that category because she's in the same book as me. However, we both understand that there was a process that went with that. It was of marketing. It's actually, and I come back to the 50 Shades of Grey or Twilight, as Lisa suggested, it's not about how good your book is. And this is where the industry needs to be disrupted. This is where people who have great books, who produce a great quality product, need to start becoming best-selling authors, to really do this one to the industry, because traditional publishing is very much about the control, the classism, and the elitism. They are actually fighting back against this whole rise of indie, and it's to their detriment. And so when you say, yes, it needs to be regulated, can it ever be regulated? How do you regulate popularity? Because that's what it comes down to. You know, how do you regulate what's a good book and what's not a good book? Then you get into censorship and all that sort of stuff, which I am very anti. Because you can write whatever you like. I don't have to buy it. I don't have to believe in it. I don't have to read it. But if I want to censor someone else, they have the right to censor me. And that's where I go, yeah, no, it doesn't happen. So I don't necessarily want to see it regulated. I want to see it open and exposed. That, you know, did you earn it? Well, maybe you did, maybe you didn't. But the best way to tell is read the book. You'll know within the first chapter if they're a good author. You'll be engaged, you'll be captured, you'll be like, I want to read more. Or you'll be able to see, okay, they actually have a really good writing style. I'm not interested in the subject matter, but yeah, I can see how perhaps they've got that achievement. Have a look at the marketing, you know, look at the reviews. People are savage in reviews, so always filter reviews, because people review, it took 3 weeks to deliver from Amazon, 1 star for the book. It's like, come on. There are bands of people out there, and this is where the sordid part of the industry comes in, and why I say don't go looking, because you'll find a lot of weird shit out there. There are people who will actively pay on Fiverr and those kinds of groups to go and actually sledge their competitors' books. So, you know, Lady A put a book out this month, Lady B is putting a book out next month. In order to market for her, she'll push her marketing, but she'll have people going and sledging this book and dragging it down in the ranking if it's done really well, in order for hers to climb. Him. I say hers because most romance writers are female. This happens in a lot of that. There's, you know, pay-per-clicks. There's a lot of scams out there. If you have no intention of being that person, then I don't need to go into it. But that's why it's always buyer beware. You know, the self-publishing, the hybrid has a lot of people who promise this, and will actually do this as well. You know, I can go and pay a legitimate company to go and do this for me. Whether it's legitimate or not is a question, because technically, what's wrong with that? It's not against the law. It's ethically unsound.
And Lisa just swung it back around, Becky, to, I think, the biggest takeaway from this session today: consider the source when you're working or looking, you know.
Yeah.
And Julia just said, I've heard that happens in the music industry too, of people buying their own CD to push it up the charts. And I can tell you that when I was a signed artist, I actually went and had to buy my own CD because the record label wouldn't release them. So I had to go buy it and then on sell it at gigs that I did. And it wasn't to push it up the charts. But I know exactly what you say when you say you do have to be careful if an industry is regulated like that, because it would limit people who are on dodgy publishing agreements where they don't get the post-marketing source. Do you see it? So the music industry is very much like this, where, and I'm not sure, but I'd love to know if it happens in the publishing industry. There's plenty of musicians that get signed to record labels. I was signed to Warner Music. I had a 10-year contract. It was the biggest contract that had ever been signed in Australia at the time. But artists that get signed can get shelved. So you can, if they have another artist that's of similar, you know, a pop singer and they're both blonde, and an artist can get signed and then shelved, where that artist might just be paid a minimal amount of money every week to just do nothing, basically just sit until they want to use you. And it's so damaging to the person that's doing that. Does that happen in publishing as well, do you think? Do books get bought and rights to books get bought because they're similar to something else that they want to potentially put more money into just to shelve that artist? Is it, or the author?
I would suggest not quite like that. So basically, you wouldn't buy a book if you're going to shelve it. That's just, it's a waste of money. What you do is, and it's very easy in the industry, you just tell everyone to ignore it, black ban it, so that they're forced to then self-publish. Whether that happens en masse, I wouldn't think so. What's more likely to happen is that, you know, something like, okay, Cassandra Clare, Mortal Instruments, huge. She used to be a paparazzi writer. So again, she obviously knows how to market, and I do believe, having read her books, that there's a lot of her marketing capability and the reason why she is so popular. But she hits the tropes and she's got all the stuff. She keeps writing in that vein. So what happens is, when that's at the peak and everyone's doing that and everyone's wanting that, they will probably buy a book in a similar vein and release it in the same time, because there's money to be had. And, you know, if you buy this book, you'll buy that book, because readers are prolific. We don't just buy one book and read it. We don't buy one author and read it, generally speaking. We buy the genre. So you want to, so the idea is they flog a genre. So we've all seen it, like, you know, Game of Thrones at its height. Everyone's buying books like Game of Thrones, and in that space of, you know, sword and sorcery, fantasy, dragons, magic, all that kind of thing. So what they're more likely to do is kind of throw it in at that peak, get the maximum sales from the trend that's happening, and then kind of like, well, the trend's over, so there's nothing more you can do with it. How they do that is, and this is where trad publishing has its problems, is because they own your book, they own the editing, they own the cover, you can't do anything with it. So, and even popular authors, Tara Moss is a prolific writer. She's written 13 books. She's got 2 different fiction series and some non-fictions. She's only just got back the rights to her Pandora series, which she published, oh my God, I think like the 90s. She's been fighting 10 years to get her rights back because the owner of the books wouldn't publish them. You can't find them. You can't buy them anywhere. They haven't been published for years because they own it. And she can't publish it because she gave them the ownership of it, and that's where contracts and all that sort of stuff come in. And there's a whole other session just on contracts. So they don't necessarily like pay you to sit there and shut up, but they can certainly stop writers in various ways, particularly in traditional, which is also why self-publishing is so popular, because it takes away that control and you're in charge. The hard part is in marketing, which is the one thing I was just going to finish off with, Julia, is if you want to sell your book, start marketing well and truly before your full book is finished.
Great
start
advice.
Talking about it, start pitching it, start telling people what it's about, start sharing anecdotes about your main character, do a cover reveal between 1 and 3 months before you're ready to sell, market. Excuse me. One thing I did not know before my book, and I would do differently, is I would have marketed the hell out of it before I published. Build your audience before you need it, which I think, again, is the same. You know, like movies, upcoming shows, we all get flogged. Oh my God, there's a new show coming out 3 months before you see it. Do the same approach with your book if you're serious about it.
Yeah, those teasers always get me, and then I forget that it's coming out, but I get really excited, and it's not happening till 3 months. It's so frustrating, but
that's why you've got to keep the message going. You know, you've got to have a release every week or every 2 weeks and sort of schedule that and keep the keep the juices flowing, so to speak, keep the interest there, keep going, you know, for the likes of Danny. It's like, oh, that's right, that book, when is it? Oh, not yet. Build to the need.
Yeah, build the crazy in the customer that they just are the first person to line up as soon as it's available.
Exactly.
They're the first person online.
3 days beforehand.
Absolutely. Becky, I could talk to you, I reckon, till the cows come home. You're such a wealth of knowledge. You just tell it like it is. I love that you are no filter, no holds barred. I just want to say again that I really hope that the sarcastic romance novel comes out in you, because I just feel like we've tapped into something here today. You're going to have to.
Like, I've got an audience. Look, I've got an audience. I've built the audience. Now I have to fill the need.
Absolutely. I just wanted to say again, last year you were the winner of our Fearless Educator category, which was the hottest contested category in our. Can you just tell us about what you found the judging process to be?
Okay, well, I was a judge last year as well, so I kind of did have some insight into behind the scenes, not in my category, obviously. So look, the Raw Awards I found interesting because it wasn't like other awards. And, you know, last year I'd had some mentor advice, Becky, you know, you've got a great career, all of this, you need to win some awards. So I'm like, okay, I'll go and win some awards. And I did. So 4 or 5 later, I'm like, maybe I should leave some for everyone else. But also too, I was like, well, it sounds really cocky when I said, well, that was easy. And the thing with awards, because I suppose I've been behind the scenes in judging and all that sort of stuff, is awards are often about the benefit for the company that's awarding. So, you know, awards in like Narwick, which I won, it's about, are you going to make Narwick's profile look bigger and better versus this other person who could win that would make Narwick's profile look bigger and better. And the one thing with the Raw Success Awards is there was none of that. It was really obvious there was none of that. You weren't interested in who was going to make you look good or make the brand look good or any of that sort of stuff. It was an award genuinely for an award. So that was the first thing that was really different. Second thing was there's no finance and stats, and it wasn't, you know, hierarchically based. So it was very freeing in that regard. The offset of that was obviously it was very challenging because it was all about you. And I actually coached a few people last year through their applications. And again, this year, not in the categories I was judging, of course, that would be unethical. And the one thing I really found interesting, and I suppose this is where the confidence and believing in yourself, is a lot of women really struggled to make it about them. They made it about their team, and they made it about their product, and they were talking about their product and their team, and the team was amazing. And I'm like, that's not what this is about. This award is actually about you. This award is very specifically you, your achievements, your drive, your goals, you. Put more you into the application. And that again is quite different from an awards perspective, in that, you know, it's like, tell us how you furthered the interests of women in construction, you know, for my construction awards, whereas Raw wasn't about that. So it was challenging in that regard. And I think I really just went, you know what, it's got my name on it, I want it. And I just turned it up 1,000% on all my other awards. I put like everything, I put in every other award in there and then added more, which was challenging because, again, I'm very service driven. I'm about how can I help others? You know, I'm about team and the construction. So the whole me focus was a challenge. And I think I saw that in a lot of other women as well. And then I saw that in the winners. Like a lot of the winners were like, oh my God, I wasn't expecting to win. Oh, focus is on me. I don't know what to do. I mean, fair enough, we were all a few drinks in by that stage too last year. But yeah, and that's why I really, really quite like the awards and came back this year as a judge, is because it's one of the few awards. It's all about the individual and their own success and their own measure of success. Also makes it really hard to judge because everyone was fantastic, and you're just like, well, they've all put an application in, they should all win. But you know, that's not real life. So thanks for that, Jenny.
Well, I'd love on that. I would love, so no one actually knows who judged which categories this year. I've kept that really quiet, won't reveal that till sort of the awards are up and running on the actual day. But it is really interesting, and I love that you touched on that the awards are really about you. And Lisa just said it's really challenging to write ice sentences that praise, but I think that's part of the process. Is it's a bit cathartic, and you really have to kind of go a bit within why you do what you do, and it's not measured on typical metrics on other awards. But being on that back end now this year as a judge, I know you judged for us last year in a different category, but can you give, I'm about to hit live this afternoon. Ooh, yep. It's exciting, on the top 5 for each category. Some categories we've had I think one was close to 40 applications, and I'm knocking that down. Yeah, it was a huge category, and I had to bring another judge in to deliberate over the top of it because it was very torn. And I think the one thing about the judging is the judging that comes back, and the process that we have is I have nothing to do with this from a input. I don't do anything other than allocate, and then the judges' feedback and their ranking comes through, and then it's all, you know, collated. What I've found this year is the judges have been so split on what they feel, you know, it should be top 5, should be winner. You know, it's been really, I've had so many calls I've been fielding in between sessions with judges that are like, oh, this person's done but I really feel like this person needs this. And it's so, I guess from a judge's perspective, because you have your work cut out for you in your category for sure, which we won't tell anyone what is yet. But can you tell me, for those that don't make the top 5 this year, there's always that pang of, and I know from being in awards prior where I haven't placed as a finalist, or I've come second to somebody or third to somebody, and I look at them and I go, what? I don't get it. Like, you don't get it. Can you just sort of explain to people why, as a judge, you look outside of things, and I guess a little bit of advice around, if you don't make the top 5, what you can take away from the experience and not allowing it to kind of take you out and have you never enter another award again, or not come back again next year to be part of ours?
Yeah. So I'll answer the second part first, in that put more you in there. If you don't rank in the top 5, it is not because you compared badly. It is because the other women put more I statements in there and really owned the space they wanted in that award. So the women who, for me, certainly when I judge, the women who really own their application and like, I want this because of this, and I've achieved this, and this is what I've done, and I am amazing, and this is what I've overcome, and are really powerful in that space, rank higher. And that is purely because their confidence and their ownership and their passion and their motivation is showing. And so people who don't do that, I kind of feel, and exactly like you said, that's what this award is about, is to bring that out. So people who don't quite bring that out, it's a challenge to do that next time. Rather than check out, actually own that space more, put more of you in it, be bolder and braver in your statements about why you deserve to win. Because that was the piece that I found hard. Why do I deserve to win this? And as well, we're naturally like, well, I don't deserve to win it. You know, it's your job, not mine. And also too, like, how many other great women are there? How do I know I'm the best? And it's like, well, fuck that, own it. Okay, I'm just going to assume I'm the best, and I'm going to tell you why. Okay, and that's the difference in that pivot. And you can see the ones who really own it and be like, you know what? Every woman could win this. Just putting this award in makes me a winner. Every single woman says that. I can't think of how many awards that didn't have that. I think even I did that, just because women were naturally like, oh, but, you know, we're inclusive. So yes, get that statement out and then be like, you know what, but fuck it. If I'm going to win, this is why. And really own that power that you have and claim that space. That would be the best advice I could give you. And that's the advice I've given people I've coached through their applications in this, is more you, more powerful you, more confident you, more determined you, more motivated you, more you. Not your team, not your product, you. What you've done to be in that space that means you're an award winner.
Great
so
advice.
So that was kind of the second part. I think the first part, you'd have to remind me what the question was. I think I answered it, or did I?
Just if they don't make the top 5, you know, like I said, you've been in awards before where you've probably not won or ranked. I'm the same. You know, it is hard sometimes, that comparison, but what can people take away from this experience outside of just the trophy at the end of the day?
Okay, take away the fact that you spent time reflecting on your level of excellence. Because this award is very you-driven, and it's not stat-driven, and it's not about achievement in your business and finance or, you know, a product sold or any of that sort of stuff. Take heart from the fact that you actually thought you were worthy enough to spend time on yourself and promote yourself in an award. Take heart from the fact that that focus is really good for your confidence and something that is an exercise that perhaps you should do more of and become practiced at, like we were talking right at the start, in terms of allow yourself to be brilliant, allow yourself to own the space that you're in, and allow yourself to feel good about that. And so do that with the award. Allow yourself the pleasure of, I put myself into it. Allow the recognition that perhaps you could put more of yourself into it, and that's probably what the winners did. But don't feel that you didn't put enough, or kind of compare. Just kind of go, okay, someone else won. I'm still a winner. I still focus on me. I've still got clarity around what the information I've put in there. Or, you know, as I like to say, use it as motivation. Be more you, put more you, achieve more, and have a crack next year and go for it. So, and that's a really interesting statement. I don't know whether it's appropriate here, but the winner of this category last year, in my opinion, kind of checked out this year. She did a phenomenal application last year. I'm being really careful and trying not to give anything away. But this year I kind of went, not feeling it. And she didn't rank.
It's very interesting that you say that, Becky, because I've been speaking about this with judges for weeks now. The people that played it safe, that didn't show what they'd done in the last 12 months, that didn't show if they won last year, why they deserve the win again. It has been really prevalent in a lot of the cases. And you're right, you really have to step up and show why you want this. This isn't just a take your application from another awards this year and copy it over, or use your last year's entry and copy it over. You really had to show the judges, particularly as some have judged last year and are back this year. You really had to show them what's changed. They don't want to read the same application. They want to know what has changed for you, where your passion's leading you, where the drive's coming from. So I'm really appreciative that you've said that, because I think that is going to be the big takeaway for this year that people can work on next year, is just a bit more self-reflection and putting in a little bit more effort. And I hope that in 2021 we get a live event, because I can't wait to have everybody in the room again and have a huge celebration. I really feel like this platform is about celebrating the uniqueness, and I really believe that even interviewing the judges for the breakout sessions, every judge is walking their own path. They are totally unique. They love what they do. And I just feel really grateful this year that we've just had such a caliber of judges stepping up that wildly are themselves. They're just so like in their groove, and they just scream passion. I want to say thank you so much for stepping up and taking the time out today, and also being a judge again this year. Can't wait to reveal the top 5. I'm getting so many bribes back behind the scenes where people are trying to crack in and get the code. And
yeah, I wish bribes were a thing.
But I want to thank you again. You've been amazing today. I will pop up all the links on how people can connect with you post this session, and we'll put this in the session so that people can replay. I would love for you, just as a closing statement, Becky, what's the best way for people to get in contact with you today? They're watching this at home, they're watching this in their offices. How can they reach out if they want more of Superstar Beck?
Probably send me a message. Facebook Messenger seems to be the thing these days. It's easy for everyone on any of my platforms, whether it's my personal page or my several business pages. Yeah, send me a message and let me know what you want to talk about, and we'll take it from there.
There you go. So if you're sitting there today and you've listened to Beck, you love her approach, you love the no holds bar, no filter, going to tell you like it is, make you step up and get out of your comfort zone and really step up and move forward in your own career and your own path, then you can get in touch. She's an amazing business coach. She's a world of knowledge, author who can help you start that book process as well. Becky, you're a legend. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you to everyone who joined in, and everyone that's watching on the replay. Have a fab day. See ya.
Thanks. Bye.